to kind of see this team right now, okay, and I'm sure you've been watching this team, Andy and those guys kind of do what they do. Can you just give me a kind of a sense of what you think about these guys, as far as Andy, just kind of talking about him a little bit and the job that he's doing, and then kind of go into like some of the philosophy you think offensively, what you think they're doing right, and maybe some things that you may critique. That I know these we don't want to be speaking disparagingly about anybody, but just go ahead and just kind of elaborate a little bit, Coach, if you will.
Yeah, well, I've known Andy for years and years and years and years. We're both from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I've known Andy for a long time, and have a great deal of respect for him, not only as a football coach, but just how he handles things. And he's had some difficult times in his life, but he is a special human being, and I think his genuineness and he's a humble guy, and he's very, very knowledgeable about utilizing players in the best way possible for them to have success, just like Don Coryell was, and just like Dick Vermeil was, and just like Marty Schottenheimer was, and Joe Gibbs was, the people that I've worked for. But I think right now, in my opinion, I think the Kansas City Chiefs are, the best team in football. I think they've got the best quarterback in football. I think the system, the way they play offensively, and Spags is doing a good job with the defense. They play complementary football. I know that people think maybe they aren't playing as well as they played in the last couple of years, but they sent a guy to Miami that's pretty darn good, and when you don't have him on your football team, it changes the dynamics a little bit. But they can run the ball, they can throw the ball, and Patrick is just he's one of those very, very special human beings, and the word that I think that is operative in terms of you're talking about the locker room is the culture. I think the culture in their locker room is terrific. I think they're real supportive of each other. Kelce obviously is maybe one of the best that's ever played the game. I still kind of favor Kellen Winslow as the best tight end that's ever played the game, and Tony Gonzalez is right in there with him, and Travis, his statistics are going to be he's already passed Tony in a lot of respects. None of them can block like you did, though, JD. None of them can block like you did. So Priest wouldn't gain as many yards in the offenses right now, but I think they're outstanding. They play with genuine enthusiasm. I think when you've had a lot of success like they have, people expect so much every single week, to the point where it'll be interesting to see how they play this week when they play Philadelphia. I mean, that's a true litmus test for this year. Repeat of that Super Bowl, and you got two great football teams playing, in a marquee game. I would never bet against Andy Reid, and I would never bet against Patrick Mahomes. And I think they're terrific. They're entertaining. They're fun to watch. They put the ball down the field. So many teams now, the passing game is a sideways passing game. It's quick screens, just throw little bubble screens out there, get the playmakers in space, which is important to do. But very few teams anymore really have a vertical passing game. The two teams that do right now that are playing that way, and people say that the Kansas City Chiefs is, quote, a West Coast offense. That's such a misnomer anymore. That the West Coast offense, as Bill Walsh ran it. Bill had one tight end, he had two running backs, he had two wide receivers, and it was a slant, hook, drag offense. It was short passes to guys like Jerry Rice and John Taylor, who were 6'3", 225 pounds, that broke tackles and made big plays with their legs, but they were in contested environments all the time. They're throwing hook routes, they're throwing slants, they're throwing shallow crosses and drags, and that was really the West Coast offense is a sideways offense. You watch Nathaniel Hackett in when he was in Denver, and when he's in they're playing the offensive coordinator for the Jets right now. That is truly a West Coast short 2 and 3 yard passing offense, and then letting the guys run the well. In Don Coryell's offense, we attacked seams. We were throwing the ball vertically. We wanted to get the ball down the field, and then work the progressions from there. And Andy Reid has done a great job of incorporating the vertical passing game, as well as the lateral passing game that is kind of emphasized by, quote, the true West Coast teams. The other NFL that plays football like that in a vertical game is Miami. And that's why they score so many points, and that's why they're so explosive. The two best, in my opinion, the two best passing offenses in the National Football League are Miami and Kansas City, because of the way they play, the way they allow the quarterback some freedom in terms of the progressions that he takes. They're deep to short progressions. They're not always sideways progressions, and they utilize by movement, by shifting, by motioning receivers to get mismatches. And one thing about coaching, you can't teach what you don't know. And a lot of young coaches now come up either through the college ranks, or they're in one system for most of their career, and then they get an opportunity to be a coordinator or a head coach, and they really don't have the broad spectrum of resources intellectually in a variety of passing offenses. So I think Kansas City is really doing it the right way. I think they're exciting to watch. I think they do a great job with their perimeter players, putting them in positions where they can have success. And I think if I had to bet on a Super Bowl team, a lot of people would say from the AFC. I'm not sure, where everybody would put their money, but I'd put all my chips on Kansas City.
Yeah, I agree with you. But Marcus,
Miami will be a tough out for him, though.
It will, yeah. I told them, I said this about Tyreek Hill. Like you said, that Kansas City let him walk. And who had more film on Tyreek Hill than Kansas City? Who knows Tyreek Hill better than Kansas City? And so Spags watched this guy in practice every single day. He cut his teeth in Kansas City. So he knew how he was going to defend Tyreek Hill. So put your hands on him, get physical, pull, push, whatever you need to do to kind of get him out of his game. And so you're not going to be able to stop a guy like Tyreek Hill. The only thing you could probably do is try to contain him, get him frustrated, and try to get him off his game as hard as that is. But I think they did very good, successful as far as game plan against him this past week against him. So
they tackled him really
well. It's a great, it's a great testament to Andy and that staff to be able to be as successful on offense as they have been without him. Because in my mind, holy cow! I mean, I would give my firstborn child, to not have to go to Miami. You could have because players like that make you a pretty good coach. And what an explosive. He's just a delight to watch, and what a phenomenal player he is. I mean, his I don't know what his stats are at this point this year, but they're off the charts, And when a team scores 70 points in a game, it's incredible what they're doing, and they're fun. The quarterback's playing great. They've got they can run the ball. They can get the ball down the field in the seams. They're not. They do a great job with the screen game. They're really a multifaceted team that really is a delight to watch. And Miami, Kansas City, I don't know that you could have any if they were playing on in the United States. That helps too.
So if Carl and Dick tried trading Tyreek, you'd have something to say about it.
Oh my God! Well, Carl did his own thing, but Dick would do everything he could to keep him. and it's a lot of it comes down to money, that, and because there wasn't a better opportunity, and who knows what goes behind closed doors, and you got this salary cap issues and all of the other administrative things that come to fruition when you deal with players and salaries and all those kind of things. But I know one thing: there's not a more exciting, more dynamic, more electric player other than maybe Christian McCaffrey. But they're those two guys are money in the bank.
That's a fact. That's a fact. I know, Marcus. Would you have some, Marcus?
Yeah, I have so many things, but one of the things you mentioned, right now you're saying the two best offenses in the league are Miami and Kansas City. But if you ask many fans right now, they'll say the Chiefs' offense is just not. Obviously, it's not what it looked like 2 years ago with Tyreek. But what would you say? Because we look at different numbers here. We look at statistic last week that the Chiefs had the lowest 3-and-out rate in the NFL. But then if you look at our red zone offense, that's where it kind of we get to the other side of the 20. That's when things kind of unravel a little bit. What would you say in watching our games is where you see the biggest struggles so far this season for our offense?
Yeah. Well, when you talk about the red zone efficiency, that we had, I think we still have the record for the highest percentage of red zone touchdowns in the history of the National Football League. You could look that up in the NFL record book, but I unless somebody has broken it in the last couple of years, but I know 3 or 4 years ago, we still had the record for the highest percentage of scoring in the red zone. And part of that was, a lot of teams now are in the shotgun all the time. If you're in the gun all the time, it diminishes a little bit the effectiveness of the run game, especially for backs that like to run downhill. And our philosophy was when we got in the red zone, when we were inside the 20-yard line, we were going to run the football. And it was run the football, play action pass, and then do some things off of what we did. But a lot of teams, they get down there, they think they've got to throw the football, that they want to try to get the one-on-one mashups. The coverages are so different, and it's so difficult to throw the ball down there sometimes because of the combination of coverages that you see. But we ran the ball. I mean, Priest Holmes scored 28 touchdowns one year. He scored 29 touchdowns the next year. And that's because, and we were able to do that because we had two terrific players that we utilized in the run game in the red zone. We had Tony Gonzalez and we had Jason Dunn. And it allowed Tony Gonzalez to get matchups one-on-one with linebackers. And we had Dante Hall that we would put in the slot, even though he was small down there. And we really ended up playing a lot of nickel defense, but we were always not always, but we were under the center. We were able to, accentuate our play action pass, and we were able to run the football really, really well. And that's the one thing that I think Kansas City has not done extremely well, is run the football in the red zone. And because if you throw it on first down and it's an incomplete, then you're going to throw it 2 more downs, because it's going to be second and whatever, and then it's going to be third and whatever. And until we were fortunate enough to score so much that what I would always do as a play caller is we would have tendencies, and I would always try to break the tendencies when we had a lead, a significant lead in a game, or we were really comfortable offensively that we were going to have a good day. And then I would still do what we would do in the red zone. Then all of a sudden I might throw the ball on first down there just to break a tendency, because most of the defensive coaches go off, computer analysis, and when you're down there on first down, it's this: on the right hash you do this, on the left hash you do this, with this personnel group you do that, and we would change up so much. We ended up having a variety of personnel groups, a variety of shifts, a variety of motions. We would never give defense the same look twice. Now, we might run the same plays from one game to the next, but they would never look the same. It would be with a different personnel group. It would be with a different shift and a different motion. And that's how we got a lot of creativity. And I do think, and once again, it's just one man's opinion, but I do think the most exciting and the most fun offenses to watch are Kansas City's and Miami's. Now, you can watch the Ravens and enjoy, that kind of an offense where the quarterback is, really an integral part of it. But they're not as exciting and will never be as productive as we were.
I tell you, I agree with that 100%. And just the innovation, I think, Andy, what he's able to do is just, you can see his brilliance in the game. And so, and I think what happens sometimes, Coach, with that brilliance, that some of the complaints from people is that Andy gets a little bit ahead of himself on short yardage, 3rd and short, right? But we don't look like we try to run the football. We're looking to try to throw and pass on 3rd down. And this past year is kind of bit us in the tail a little bit, because if you are 3rd and 1, you're having Darius Toney, wide receiver in the backfield. He's taking a snap, or you're trying to run jet sweep and jet motion, hand him to a running back, try to get to the outside, and you're already out leveraged. And so, obviously, as you know this, if your wide receivers are not capable blockers, that's going to be a problem. It's going to be a huge problem. So what do you?
And it depends on how you run the ball. We always felt like, we had inside zone, we had outside zone, we had gap scheme runs, we had traps, we had it all. And Priest was a downhill runner, and the important thing, like when we first started talking, you find out what your players can do, and you don't ask them to do things that they can't do. And thinking back, if you had a Derrick Henry, or you had, a Mixon like Cincinnati has, I mean, you don't want those guys running sideways. You want to run it downhill. And so you've got to build your system of offense to take advantage of the people that you have. And each year it changes. Without Tyreek Hill, that offense is a bit different. The terminology is the same, and some of the base packages are the same, and they're running the pass game, but it's different. And I think one of the I don't want to say a trap, because that's not a good word to use, but one of the kind of MOs that coaches fall into, and Marty Schottenheimer used to say this all the time: in times of stress, think about players, not plays. And I think sometimes when it's a stressful situation or it's a key situation, oftentimes coaches start thinking of plays, when really it's the players that who is your best player. And I think Andy's always done a really good job of that, because the 2 best players right now are Kelce and Mahomes. So probably without being in their staff, I'm sure the thinking is, when in times of stress, you think of those 2 guys. How does Patrick Mahomes get the ball to one of our perimeter players? And Travis Kelce is a big part of that. As long as Taylor Swift's in the stands, I guess. If she's not there, then they go to someone else. I don't know how that works, but I sometimes, and the other thing that happens is people catch up with you. As much as you try to stay ahead of the curve and you try to do different things from an offensive perspective, there's some pretty smart defensive coaches out there too, and there's some real good players. And when teams play you twice a year in your division, it's a little bit harder to play against those teams and be more creative. But I have so much respect for Andy. I have so much respect for what they do, that it's only halfway through the season, and I don't have the stats in front of me. I don't know where they are offensively or anything like that, but I know one thing: they're effective, and they will be, and they're not going to get worse. They're going to get better. Just hopefully they don't have injuries like, gosh darn, quarterbacks are getting injured like crazy. Knock on wood. We don't want to jinx Patrick, but the kid from Cincinnati goes out last night, and the Browns lose their starting quarterback, $230 million guaranteed. Would you play for that, JD?
Man, all day, right now. Sign me up. 230 minutes. That's just crazy.
That's unbelievable.
It's just crazy thinking about it.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.